My name is Alejandro with Community Language Cooperative, and bear with me as I interpret for myself for this section. Buenas tardes a todos. Mi nombre es Alejandro. Vengo con la Cooperativa Comunitaria de Lenguaje. Voy a estar interpretando todo simultáneamente al español. I will be interpreting everything today simultaneously into Spanish. Entonces, si se fijan a mano derecha, tienen un icono de globo. Pueden hacerle clic a ese mundo, escoger el español y poner el audio original en mudo para de esa manera escuchar en el idioma de su corazón. If you would like to listen in Spanish today, we have interpretation. On your right-hand side, you should see a globe icon that you can click on, select Spanish and mute original audio if you would like to do so. We would like to make sure that folks are able to participate in the language of their heart. So I want to go ahead and thank all of the organizers, staff, and participants here today for practicing language justice as much as possible with us. Entonces, queremos que puedan participar en el idioma de su corazón y por eso tenemos la interpretación el día de hoy. Y quiero darle las gracias ante nada a todo el personal, organizadores y a los participantes por estar aquí el día de hoy y apoyar con la justicia del lenguaje. I would also like to remind everyone, though you should not be able to unmute at the moment, if at any moment in time you are able to, we do ask that you keep yourself on mute regardless to make sure that the interpreter is able to hear clearly and interpret adequately. We also ask that in order to make sure we have smoothness and fluidity today, and in order to be able to use our bandwidth, we do ask that you as a participant keep your camera off for this event as well, as it'll make sure signal is great for all of us. El día de hoy también queremos recordar a todos a que por favor mantengan su cámara apagada para que todos podamos participar y usar la conexión del internet a lo mejor que se pueda para poder interpretar adecuadamente. All right, and with that, I'll go ahead and pass it on back to you. And again, this was Alejandro with Community Language Cooperative. Thank you.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Reynaldo Mireles, the Director of Elder Services with the Center on Colfax in Denver, Colorado. I want to welcome you to our second gathering of our four-part series, Immigration is an LGBTQ Issue, Love Across Borders. Tonight and for the next 2 Tuesdays in September, we will continue to share stories of our LGBTQ immigrant siblings and learn ways we can deepen our support for their leadership and resiliency. This 4-week series highlights the critical needs of our LGBTQ immigrant family members and is brought to you by Mariposa at the Althea Center in partnership with New York-based Immigration Equality and the Colorado chapter of the American Friends Service Committee. Other partner organizations include PFLAG, the Center on Colfax, HEAL Denver, Colorado Immigrant Rights Coalition, Rocky Mountain Immigrant Advocacy Network, Padres y Jóvenes Unidos, One Colorado, Casa de Paz, and Abolish ICE Denver. A huge thank you to Raíces Brewing Company for sharing their beautiful space for our on-site venue last week, and also the next 2 gatherings that we'll have next Tuesday. To Optimum Films for providing professional audio visual services, to Alternity for donating some of their beautiful Freedom of Migration for All creation t-shirts, and to the Black Actors Guild for producing our entertainment segments each week. Initially, this series was to be an all-day symposium back in April at the historic Althea Center. But of course, with COVID changing all that, we're here tonight through this Zoom format, actually giving us a unique way to share diverse stories from LGBTQ immigrant community members and to ask the deeper question, what can we do? For many of our LGBTQ siblings, the global struggle for self-determination has brought them to the US border. From that initial point of contact, there is much for us to do and a great need for more folks like yourselves to get involved. This evening, Our theme is family, familia. As you may already know, many LGBTQ people form strong families of choice in addition to their families of origin as a way of coping with possible or actual rejection by parents, siblings, and other relatives for being open about their sexual orientation or gender identity. Even as attitudes have changed and LGBTQ people have become more visible and accepted, families of choice still provide invaluable networks of emotional and social support. Let's keep in mind what this all means, especially for our LGBTQ siblings who have had to leave their families in countries of origin and ask ourselves more than ever, how can I become a family of choice member for others? Tonight, we'll hear about the firsthand experience of PFLAG in Las Cruces, New Mexico, which received one of 3 chapter awards from the national organization last October in recognition of its LGBTQ immigration work. Although the initials PFLAG were often seen to mean parents, family of lesbians and gays, PFLAG has always been an outspoken advocate for trans inclusion in all public policy positions and proposed legislation long before some other national organizations. To get our program started, let me introduce Tim Wilson, the volunteer program director of Mariposa at the Althea Center, Embracing Wholeness. Tim has been an active member and volunteer in PFLAG in Denver, regionally and nationally for 40 years, and a staff member in Denver for 9 years. So it gives me great honor So it gives me great honor to introduce you to my friend Tim to initiate tonight's discussion.
Thank you, Reynaldo. And I'm honored to be able to have a brief conversation this evening with Ryan Steinmetz, president of PFLAG Las Cruces, New Mexico. A native Buckeye, Ryan came to Las Cruces to serve as an AmeriCorps volunteer with Border Servant Corps, and he ended up staying. He has worked closely with issues of immigration and domestic violence as director of the Border Servant Corps and a counselor with La Casa Domestic Violence Center. He now manages youth services for the city of Las Cruces and serves as the president of his local PFLAG chapter. Thank you, Ryan, for being part of our program tonight.
Thank you.
Let me start with this first question. Tell us how you got involved with LGBTQ specific immigration work and what inspired you to make such a commitment?
Well, first of all, I'm here with Dulce Rivera, and we'll introduce Dulce in just a little bit. She's going to share a little bit about her story. But to respond to your question, the way that I got involved with LGBTQ immigration work was I was always interested in immigration work in general. That's what brought me down here with the work that I did with Border Servant Corps and through La Casa Domestic Violence Center. I worked with a lot of immigrants who are immigrant victims of domestic violence. That's a really important cause to my heart. And something I've always been very interested with. In terms of how I specifically got involved with LGBTQ immigrants, I answered an email. So basically what happened was there was a call that went out via email to several other social justice organizations here locally from the Detained Migrant Solidarity Committee in El Paso, Texas. And they were asking for a household or households for 2 gay male couples that were in detention
that would need a place to be released to, but they had a case that was strong enough that they would be able to be paroled, taken out on bond, basically, and removed from the detention center, released to a household. And I had just gotten a new home, and I was found myself single and didn't have family or kids or anything to fill some of the rooms that I had in my house. And I just was like, well, this is something that I care about. I'm going to just ask the question, what would this mean? I have a household with two, with actually 3 rooms that aren't being used. One is being used as an office, actually. And I was just like, let's see where this goes. So I did that, and lo and behold, it kind of was certainly an adventure, I would say. I think it's very simplistic to say that this is how it happened, because there was a lot of other things that were involved with the process. But this is where it all kind of started. This is a need in our community, in our border community. And I have a space that could help fill that need. What do I need to do to make this happen, and how will I be supported in doing that? I think is another question that I was like, okay, I might be able to do this, but what else has to go on here in order for this to happen?
So what are the most important lessons that you have learned these past couple of years while hosting LGBT asylum seekers from a variety of countries, actually?
Well, I guess the biggest thing is that it takes a village, that no one can do this on their own. It's really important to have a strong support network of other local organizations, other interested community members, churches, a variety of different community organizations coming together to create this solid network to support the person that is hosting, as well as all of the folks that are coming to that community, and kind of, Las Cruces is a really great place. It's a small enough community. We have 100,000 folks or so in our community, but it's big enough where there's a lot of resources, but also small enough where it's a great community feel. And so having this community wrap around the folks that came to stay with us was very powerful and much needed. I would not, or PFLAG Las Cruces would not have been able to do this on their own. We did this with the help of a lot of different organizations. I think another thing that is really important is it's a big commitment. It's sometimes kind of a long haul. There's not certainly right now in this administration, there's not a clear pathway or timeline to asylum seekers coming and getting their asylum approved. In fact, so many folks do not get their asylum approved, but those that we were able to help, most of them are still either waiting for their asylum, or they are, or some of them that we've worked with have been deported because they made a certain choice here to not follow through with a meeting or what have you, and that was the consequence, unfortunately. So I think that's another thing that we've learned, how to be better advocates for folks. The only other thing that I would say to that question is creating a safe environment where asylum seekers can be informed about their choices, and making sure that they're the ones in the driver's seat. We are merely accompanying them, allowing them space to have a safe space of respite, as well as trying to figure out what the next steps are and supporting them in doing that. I think of a situation where, we try to do some wraparound services for some of our folks that were coming in who had maybe experienced trauma, and we got counseling arranged for them, and didn't fail to ask if they wanted counseling. And so they felt like they needed to go to a counseling session because we had arranged it for them, but it wasn't something that was within their cultural norm to do, number one, and it wasn't something that they felt comfortable doing, and that was not. We had good intentions with that, but I think those are some of the lessons that we learned along the way of making sure that at all times we're always asking the person that's staying with us, what is it that you need? And what is it that you want to be your next step? And how do we support you in doing that?
Those are some really good points, Ryan. And for our listening audience, Ryan has prepared some outstanding handouts. And we have printed these out, and they're included inside the immigration equality tote bags that our first 100 registrants will get. There's a great one-page document entitled 10 Important Tips If You or Your Organization Want to Work with Asylum Seekers. And there's a 9-page PowerPoint presentation working with LGBTQ asylum seekers that's actually a very quick read. We want to make these handouts available to our online audiences. So if you'd like to receive them, just email our Denver-based program at mariposalgbtq@gmail.com. I'll spell that mariposalgbtq@gmail.com. Now, the next question is, what would you do differently based on your firsthand experiences? And you've answered that with one of your examples, but why don't you also tell us a little bit about how others can help with these kinds of efforts in a little more concrete way, maybe?
Sure. I think that, one of the things that I would do differently is to do a better check on myself with how am I doing in all of this work. I think it was important for me to be in a good headspace and to check my own mental health with taking in some folks, because I was experiencing some fatigue for sure, but also there at the beginning I took in 4 people, and actually it ended up being 5 people at one time, and that was something I needed to check on myself. It was a little bit too much for me. But we adjusted that, and then when we had some more folks that needed a place to come, I took them in kind of 1 or 2 at a time at the most. I think how other folks can get involved is you can be a part of a coalition of people that can house people, which is great. It's a wonderful experience, even though it is a big commitment. There's a lot of interesting things to be learned from the experience. But I also think if you're not able to do that, there are all kinds of things that people need support in, whether that's rides to get from one place to another, whether that is getting a haircut. We had someone from the community that just wanted to come here and give our asylum seekers some haircuts that they needed, and it was for free. He didn't expect anything in return, and that was a great thing that they were able to provide that we don't think about. All of those different things that we do in our lives and have, that we're able to get, they didn't have anything like that. And so any little thing that people were able to do, even getting them to go out to some of the different venues in the community. One of the coolest things that I saw was some of our community members taking our asylum seekers out to their first LGBT bar in El Paso, or maybe their first drag show. I think those are just some really cool things that happened that were exciting to see, and that was just a really great way for community members to be involved. And maybe they're not able to house somebody, but they are able to do something like that. Getting those folks is really important.
Something I've talked with the Althea Center Spiritual Director, Dr. Jonathan, about is there is a need. We've been, the collective community, not so much our organization, but the collective community here in Denver has been assisting a number of transgender individuals when they get out of ICE, and a need was identified of makeup and self-care products, and we are thinking about doing a cosmetic and self-care drive, if you will, at the Althea Center sometime in the next couple months. Don't know what that looks like, but it's, again, something that simple can really make a difference, because especially for our trans family members, presentation is important, and when they get out, they're not allowed to work, they need money. Can we provide some of these things for them?
For sure. Yeah.
So our theme for tonight is family, and of course that's why the PFLAG connection is so easy to make here. But how important has it been to create, what I would call a family environment for the asylum seekers that you've hosted, and are those kinds of relationships and connections, are they, the ones that you've made, are they ongoing or not? Give us a sense of family from a Las Cruces experience perspective.
Sure. Well, I think family is both on the small scale and the large scale. So I first think to the small scale, creating a family environment. I was trying to be a big brother to all of the folks that stayed with me, and trying to give some advice, as well as connect them with the resources so that they could independently answer some of the questions that they had, support them, nudge them sometimes. Oh, you got to do this. You got to remember to do this. But those were some of the things that we did in the household. But I got them connected to my parents, and to the several of the folks that stayed with me. Called my mom and called my dad, or mama y papa, and it was really great to for them to experience that. My parents do not speak Spanish, so it was a very when I had Spanish speakers that were immigrants staying with me, that was always a big challenge, but still the love was there. And across, the theme or of your whole symposium of love across borders, love transcends across borders, and it transcends across language. And so they were really able to have that connection, and a lot of times, even though there's that language barrier, they will still text my mom to see how she's doing, and see how Mr. Bill is doing, that's my dad, and check in on that. I think the larger community then embracing our LGBTQ asylum seekers through our Rainbow Refugee Program was imperative, to make them feel welcome, to make them feel like they were supported. One of the things that our local Pride celebration, our local Pride organization did, was to make our LGBTQ asylum seekers grand marshals of our parade, of our Pride parade, walking through the streets. And that was really exciting for them. and a really great way of showing our love and support for them and their needs. And so Dulce actually as well has also been the Grand Marshal of the local Las Cruces Pride Parade too. So.
Well, Ryan, thank you so much for your time and insights. Now I'll let you make any concluding thoughts if you want, and or go ahead and introduce Dulce, who has been helped by your local New Mexico community. Thanks again for participating.
Well, in closing, I just want everybody to think about this as an opportunity, and know that there's a huge need right now. And even though there's definitely some challenges and some things to think about with regards to the pandemic and COVID and things like that currently that we weren't thinking about before, I think it's a great, important thing for folks to consider and look into what they might need in terms of support in order for them to do that themselves. But I want to introduce Dulce Rivera. Is an asylum seeker who came out of detention in April 9th. April 9th of last year, though.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So you've been out for over a year, correct? Yes. And so, but that was after being in detention for 2 years. So she's going to share a little bit with you about some of her story. And one of the questions that I wanted to start with is, what were some of the reasons that you came to the U.S. For asylum?
Well, another reason why I came over here is to rescue my values, to be a trans woman. And another one is to recognize my identity, because in a country when it's not safe, I think it's really hard to identify yourself to be a trans woman, because you know the insecure in those countries, I think, is not really safety. And another one is the reason is because the way how do you express yourself in the country is like you has a limitation. You can express your feelings, your ideas, and it's so many limitations to you can extend your wings and say, you know, I'm free. You know, definitely you're in a country like, you know, Honduras, you know, I think it's not a place to you can say, you know, I'm a trans woman and I have a man, and I think that's the important thing that we are losing in those countries. You know, a lot of educations, you know, orientations, you know, the people, they're not interested to hear about what's going on in you, or what's your feelings, what kind of stuff like that. So the reason why I came to USA is to be the person who I am. You know, that's the main thing. Rescue my values, to be a trans woman and be a part of the LGBT
Community. Cool. Another question that I have for you is, what did you expect from the U.S. immigration system, and then what were the realities?
You know, what I expect for when I came to USA, I was thinking it's gonna be everything like easy, and you know, and it's gonna be okay. Next day I'm gonna be okay. But you know, with the other drama and the other psychology things that you pass through to that program, I think it's really affecting you. It's really affecting you real deep, because it's not like you go into a regular process. It's a process that you get into a mental illness, you know, missing people that you love in all of those countries, and you really feel like that you don't have no exit. Okay, the other thing is that I expect was I going to be just like 3 months, 2 months, but we came to be this big surprise that I came in 2017 and get off in 2019. You know, I never expect that to be an insulated in a they call the ice box. You know, I was like a year, 11 months and insulated. You know,
11 months isolated
isolated,
from
and I
the,
think that one was for my orientation. They not really has uh, the abilities to have trans people in detentions because they don't have the training, they don't have no hormones, they don't have no education. So they call you guy, what's up, dude? You know, get on that way, you know, and I think that's the way really irrespectful to call a trans woman, you know, a man when you identify a woman. So, and another thing is, the things that I expect when I was in ICE, I expecting the community gonna be able to bring me little breeds, you know, little like feel okay, but community is too short. It's not many. I don't know what it is. Maybe a scared to helping immigrants, or they got those kinds like they hold. But if you're helping out immigrants when it's in detention, I think it's the best gift that you can give it to refugees. And I think that's me when I be in touch with few organizations, and I was feel free to speak and say what's my feelings inside. So yeah.
so now that you've been out of detention for a fair amount of time, living here in Las Cruces, and by the way, Dulce doesn't live with me through PFLAG's program. Dulce is actually staying with a woman in our community by the name of Jan Thompson, who has also created an organization called YANA, which stands for You Are Not Alone, and is working in the community as well to do some of this kind of work. But we and PFLAG have been working somewhat close together, and certainly supporting Dulce in the work that she's doing down here. So I wanted to make that clear. But now that you've been out and living with Jan and living in the community of Las Cruces, what have been the positives of living in Las Cruces, and what have been some of the challenges?
Well, the positive is the you know, every day I join at different things, you know, and I discover new ideas, and and the the, the beautiful to be living in a close to our communities, you know, a different organization is because you feel that if you need anything, you can come and you can come and knock them doors and let it know, you know, I live in these issues. Can you please help me? And I do got this experience over here, Las Cruces. You know, it's a small little town, but with a bigger heart. You know, people really interesting to where you're from, where you came from, how do you learn English, you know what I mean, like this kind of stuff like that, and they really open mind. And I think we came from different countries. They not welcome you in another village or in another city. They will kill you if you go in close to another house. And over here is so different. Over here is love, you know, and uh, and and a lot of opportunities. Right now, my bigger you know, challenge is my work permits. You know, I'm definitely I need to get that, you know, so I can be more independent, you know, and try to get the work permits.
Yeah. So yeah, this is definitely a situation that, you know, one thing to share with you is that you were in detention for 2 years. You've been out of detention for about a year, close to a year and a half. But you still have not been granted asylum. Is that correct?
Oh, yeah.
And so,
And I want to share something too.
sure.
I want to share anything is really somebody who's really sensitive to suicide. I think it's not really good to hear that. Officer from ICE, they find me hanging in my room, and everything was because I was really depression, because I was so with a lot of stuff in my mind. So definitely they do find me in inside the insulated room with no. So that's me, a community. If you guys listen to me, please. I need that somebody has the opportunity to visit a member of family or LGBT. Please do it. We has a lot of depression in there. We has a lot of things to going on in there. It's not easy.
And unfortunately, it's not an isolated incident of isolation. What we hear from Dulce, as a lot of LGBT folks are put into isolation because of the detention center not knowing what to do with them, or because they say for their protection, but it actually is not at all protecting our LGBT folks. It's so that others feel comfortable, and so that's a very ridiculous thing. And I found so many of the folks that I visited before we had them come to stay with us were depressed as well, and they were also put into isolation too. So I think that what that plea that you made, another way that people can help is to not just think about bringing people to their home or supporting them once they're here, but also going to the detention centers and actually having a conversation with people. I recognize that language is an issue there, but if you do know Spanish, but not even if you know Spanish, there's plenty of English-speaking immigrants that are in detention right now, and that you can be paired with so that you can connect with and support them. Be a loving face, a kind face that is, on the other side of that glass is just a little bit of hope for them during their day. And it's a really important thing.
We don't need no money. We don't need no anything, but we need the support. We just need to see somebody behind those windows to talk to us. We okay, we got 3 dinners in there, 3 meals a day, but we need support. We want to hear somebody on the other side of those glass. It's not easy. Believe me, it's not easy to be 24/7 and demanding from the officers, do this, do that. It's not easy when you are trans woman, when you have to pass by hormones, therapies, and things like that. It's real hard.
For sure. Oh. Uh-oh.
So Ryan, you and Dulce have up to 10 more minutes if you have more things to talk about.
Sure. One thing to stress is that the organizations that are doing this kind of work do need your financial support so that they can continue to do those kinds of jobs with supporting our LGBTQ asylum seekers. So whether that's helping out PFLAG Las Cruces, certainly that would be helpful. And I think there's a link to our website there. We can give you ideas of how to do that. But other organizations that are local there, I heard that Rock Mountain Immigration Services is on that list of supporters. That's a great organization, local organizations, PFLAG Denver. All of those organizations are doing lots of great work in their communities to help support this particular issue. And I just want to thank you all for spotlighting this issue and kind of elevating it so that we can have a dialogue about this, because this is an important thing. Too often, I think, we're not always focused, us within the LGBTQ community are not always focused about how these issues intersect. And this is a very clear intersection, and one way that we can be supportive of, you know, I go to think about how if this is happening to anyone from our LGBTQ community, it's happening to us all. And so it's really, really important to be, to have knowledge and have awareness of this issue, and be there in support of those that are coming out of detention and that need a respite before they make the next step to whatever that next step might be. The other thing that I would, you know, kind of have us think about is the disparity between different sectors of the immigration system. That is a really crazy thing to me. In other words, Las Cruces is part of the El Paso sector, and they have a 94% or something like that, 94% denial rate for asylum seekers that are coming into this country. And then going to a place like San Francisco or going to a place like New York City, there's a 75% approval rate in those areas. And there's just a very, you know, disjointed system with our immigration courts and what happens within the immigration courts to, you know, that makes this whole process and this whole immigration issue so much more complicated than what it already is. So a lot of times we would have folks that would stay with us for a little bit, maybe 6 months or so, but then realize, hey, my chances are going to be better somewhere else because of X, Y, Z, because of the approval rate or what have you. And so we had some of our folks that stayed with us go to places like California because they had family there. They went to New York City because they felt that their chances were better in New York City, even though, and then they got stuck in some of the pandemic nightmare that was affecting New York City up there for a while. So it's definitely still a challenge. Like I said, we only worked with 2 people that actually had been given asylum. Of the 9 immigrants that we worked with that were seeking asylum, 2 of them had already been granted asylum. The other, all of the other cases, with the, you know, exception of those that had been deported because they didn't follow up with a particular meeting or something like that, or they left the situation without following up with the court system, all of them are still pending their asylum case. And so this is a long process, and even longer. It was a long process before the current administration. So, you know, but with the current administration, it's just made an already long process even longer.
So I'll just sort of plant a seed for 2 weeks out on our closing night on September 29th. We'll be hearing from the legal director of the national organization, Immigration Equality. And I think their statistics show something like there's a 90% chance someone will be deported if they don't have legal representation. So that's a critical piece. And of course, some of our partner organizations here in Denver are part of providing legal support also. But I think, do you have any closing thoughts? And then we'll turn it back to Reynaldo for some closing comments and a look at next week.
Closing thoughts?
Well, say thank you again, both of you, for participating on our program. I really appreciate it.
Sure. I just, closing thoughts, my closing thoughts are with Dulce, in that I've just really appreciated your presence in our community. And your ability to light up a room. You really do. You're so excited about life and about things here, and I've just really appreciated seeing that in you and seeing you blossom here in this community. And so I want to thank you and honor you for all of that you have gone through, and we're glad that you're in a safe place right now.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Tim. Gracias, Dulce, por compartir tu historia. Thank you for sharing your story with us, Dulce. I'm sure that many of us who were here tonight have been inspired. There is so much to learn. And even as we keep learning, I want folks to know that there is also much to do. In order that this struggle for justice for our LGBTQ immigrant siblings to be successful, we need all of you. We need volunteers and financial support. We need a dedicated community of supporters working with our extended family of choice and demanding justice. What we want from you this evening is for you to pick one of the partner organizations I'm going to speak to that resonates with you to become more involved. And so tonight, we highlight some of these. Of course, PFLAG Las Cruces, Nuevo Mexico. PFLAG has a threefold mission of support, education, and advocacy. This local chapter has taken support to a higher level with their LGBTQ immigrant work and community building in Las Cruces. LGBTQ immigration work requires a lot of education and advocacy too. And it takes money. Even though Dulce said no necesitamos dinero, that we don't need money, but this is where it counts, where we need people to support financially to make sure that it's being provided for the global LGBTQ family members seeking asylum. So we also have, of course, Mariposa at the Althea Center, Embracing Wholeness. Just 3 years old now, Mariposa at Althea envisions an open and safe community for all, connecting LGBTQ individuals with each other and the world around them. Mariposa is proud to be the initiator of this 4-week program series and is honored to have worked with the other 12 nonprofit organizations in bringing this programming. Supporting Mariposa financially is how you can support the overall $8,000 budget for this 4-week series. We also want to mention One Colorado, the state's largest LGBTQ advocacy organization, the state's leading advocacy organization dedicated to advancing equality for LGBTQ Coloradans and their families. Volunteering is a great way to give back and join the fight for LGBTQ equality in Colorado. One Colorado has many opportunities for all volunteer interests, ranging from phone calls or canvassing during elections, joining their team at staff events, data entry, or sharing your stories. Abolish ICE Denver. Abolish ICE Denver and Sanctuary for All are sister organizations working together to fight and confront the system of immigration. All of the actions of Abolish ICE Denver are based on the suggestions of impacted families from Sanctuary for All. Our mission is to provide resources surrounding immigrant families and deportation processes, and through Abolish ICE, directly confront and stand up to immigration, and in this way, fight side by side to keep families together. If you enjoyed tonight's program, we urge you to tell a friend and join us next week when our focus will be the theme of hope. And of course, I'm going to be the one there, and I'm going to have our guest speakers. It's all going to be done in Spanish. And when we know that, of course, it's going to be taking place over at Raíces Brewing Company, we're so thankful for them to be offering next week and the week following the space to actually be there in person. So again, next week, I will be there facilitating the conversations with a person from Guatemala and another person from El Salvador. Y va a ser en español. Dulce, hope you'll be able to join us as well. But I just wanted to let you know that, of course, those that will be attending either in person or through Zoom, the option for English interpretation will also be available on your mobile devices if you're attending in person with your earphones put on, of course. Again, our deepest gratitude to Raíces Brewing Company for sharing their beautiful space with us next week, to Optimum Films for providing professional audio-visual services, to Alternity for donating some of their beautiful Freedom of Migration for All Creation t-shirts, and to the Black Actors Guild for producing our entertainment segments each week. And now I'd like to welcome our entertainment MC from the Black Actors Guild, Franklin Cruz.
Hello, can people see me? Because I cannot see myself.
Yes,
Yes.
Franklin, we can see you.
Oh, dope. I can't see myself, so this is an interesting moment. Hello, everyone. My name is Franklin Cruz, he, they pronouns. I'm over here in Denver, Colorado, having an amazing night. Thank you, Dulce, for your story. It's a heavy story, and we appreciate that story that you carried to us. I mean, fue de verdad una carga que tú no tenías que cargar. But now that we have it here, I mean, all of us now feel charged to go do something. At least I do. Pero with that in mind, we are coming here from the Black Actors Guild as poets. I have a wonderful co-feature who's going to kick us off. Let me get this biography done underway because you got no idea who this is. So let me tell you. Ashley Cornelius is a spoken word poet in Colorado. She won Gold for Colorado Springs Independent Best Artist category 2019. Don't underestimate that. Fly categories. She has won 4 poetry slams in Colorado Springs and was the Women of the World Poetry Colorado Springs representative and competed in Dallas at the Nationals in 2018. She's been featured in Keep Colorado Springs Queer Open Mic, Black Voices Matter Open Mic, the NAACP Colorado Springs, Pikes Peak Community College, the Colorado Springs Women's March, and at Inkwell, the Mercury Cafe, and events in Denver and Colorado Springs. So you know she's ready for this because you know she's seasoned. Ashley is the co-director of Poetry 719, and she was nominated for 2 2018 Pikes Peak Art Council Awards and 1 Best Recurring Poetry Event. She has also been featured in the TEDx Colorado Springs. That's top notch right there. She has her master's in international disaster psychology from DU, so she's about to heal you pretty much, and is a licensed professional counselor candidate. And she works for Denver Health and focuses on providing emotional and psychological support to Denver Health employees through the RISE program. Please, y'all, make some Inclusive applause for Ashley Cornelius.
Thank you. If you can hear me, can you just, someone give me a thumbs up? Beautiful. Thank you so much. And thank you, Franklin, such a beautiful friend and soul in this world, for this introduction. And thank you so much for everyone here, and for Dulce for your resilience and deeply moving story. I'm just so grateful to be with you all today. So I'm gonna read you all 3 pieces of original poetry, really focusing on just like queer struggles and rights, as well as addressing systemic issues. If you can see, I have my pride earrings on. They say pride was a riot. And so always remembering as we move through this world of the ways in which we have had to fight, and the ways in which we are still fighting, and that we will always rage against oppression, systemic racism. And so I'm so happy to share this work with you today. So my first piece is titled Black Queer Lives Matter. When you say Black Lives Matter, remember you are speaking into existence the labor and dedication of Black queer women. Alicia Garza, Patrice Cullors, Opal Tometi, who planted and watered the roots of this movement. When you recite, I have a dream, know you are channeling the work and linguistics of a Black gay man. Bayard Rustin, advisor to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the same man who was jailed and threatened for his sexual orientation, forced to remain behind the limelight to Dr. King. When you attend Pride, acknowledge you are standing on the bricks and mortar of a Black trans woman, Marsha Pay It No Mind Johnson, who was instrumental in the Stonewall riots, all while providing support to homeless queer youth and sex workers in Manhattan. When you call for this movement to be intersectional, remember you are honoring the work of a Black queer woman, Audre Lorde, self-identified Black, lesbian, feminist, mother, poet, warrior, paving the path for women to reclaim their eroticism, their bodies, and their voices. When you demand no justice, no peace, recognize this is a prayer for all the Black trans women who are missing and murdered. When you raise your fist, it is in solidarity with the Black queer youth beaten and bloodied, exiled by their families, bullied by their peers, and shamed for their lifestyles. When you yell ACAB, make sure you understand you are fighting against the panic defense, justifying the assault and murder of queer folks based on their identities. When you protest in the streets, know this movement is queer, is non-binary, is trans. Realize we walk on the footsteps of Black queer leaders who dedicated their lives so that we can continue to say, Black Lives Matter. Thank you. Thank you all so much. Yes, the snaps, applause. Really wanted to share, as we look through all movements, right? There's so much of it is like queer and LGBTQ leaders. It is inexplicably like entangled, right? And so when we talk about intersectionality, we're looking at the person as a whole of all of these intersecting identities. And so for me, it's so important that as we honor all of these movements, we also honor the identities and the ways in which we are always walking in the past and on the shoulders of queer leaders before us. So this next piece I wrote in anger, as the best poetry happens, out of raging. And so this one is called The System is Broken. And we're constantly told this, the system is broken, the system is broken. And I don't believe that. I think the system is working exactly how it should. And it is our job to break it. So this is my attempt at addressing the breaking of the system. And trigger warning for sexual assault and assault. I am told the system is broken. The corruption of the system is deep and historical. It is our job as activists, revolutionaries, the woke to fix, to repair, to realign the system. Be it the justice system, school, prison, healthcare, economic system, I say false. The system is not broken. There were no cracks allowing the innocent to fall in and be condemned to darkness. No erosion of justice and equality. The system is working perfectly. It is protecting and serving the great-great-great-grandchildren of our founding fathers. It is oppressing and suppressing the voices written in as inferior. In fact, by the time I finish this poem, a rapist has picked up 20 pieces of trash for their punishment. By the end of this sentence, the ink will have dried on the wrongful conviction of a Black man. So the system never really liked Black people. Couldn't find ways to openly hunt us, so they wove it into the fabric of our systems, made it legal to gun down innocent Black men, created laws to protect the killers, and gave killers badges to protect the law. It was designed so that Cynthia Brown was sentenced and served 15 years for killing a grown man who hired her, a young child, for sex. Our system knows that men whose names do not get to be a part of this poem can rape a woman, unconscious, behind a dumpster, and get off. The system was constructed so Black and brown bodies selling marijuana are imprisoned for most of their life, while white bud tenders and dispensary owners gentrify and profit in their absence. The system created the panic defense, making a case in court that a person's sexual orientation, gender identity, and expression grants permission and is warranted for someone to beat, torture, or kill them with cause. Our system is a well-oiled machine when there are more prison cells than schools. When neighborhoods for Black folks are designed to block resources, the fact that there is a 16-year life expectancy gap for the southeast of Colorado Springs, which is historically a Black neighborhood, and the rest of the city means that system is working. If you are shocked by these atrocities, if these moments make you say, I can't believe that happened, how could someone get away with that, then you are forgetting the definition. A system is a set of things working together as a part of a mechanism or interconnected network. An organized scheme or method of support a driving force, and we were never learned how to drive. See, the system couldn't fathom that Black people would be in political power. Never anticipated there'd be trans CEOs, didn't plan for women to become doctors and surgeons. We are their worst nightmares. See, we are the children of the brujas, the slaves, the immigrants, the untouchables that they couldn't kill. We are surpassing and messing up their expectations of perceived limits. Our job is to break the system. It is to deconstruct the foundations of oppressive cogs and wheels designed to harm us. This poem is a sledgehammer. Your engagement is a wrecking ball, and our presence is a demolition of this system. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, the system is working perfectly, as we hear time and time with these stories. This is how it's supposed to happen, and there's not much we can do to repair. It's breaking the system. It is recognizing it and building a new one that is inclusive and supportive, right? I always think about the way our system are set up. They never thought people of color would ever have power. They never thought queer folks would ever get anywhere. And so all of these systems thought that we wouldn't make it. And we are resilient, powerful, strong people, and we are messing up their systems. We are redesigning it. And so I love that piece so much, and love that we're all here. We are all a part of the demolition of the system. So I have one more piece to share with you all. This is a very personal piece for myself. I hear often all the time people praying that their kids aren't gay, right? I think we hear that refrain all the time. We know about conversion therapy, and especially here in Colorado, that was only recently taken away, but this linkage with prayer and queerness. And so this was my response when people pray that their kids aren't gay. To the parents who pray their child isn't gay, I tell them, pray your child is healthy. Pray they have universal health care. Pray they are well adjusted, that they eat their boogers in private, are kind to animals. Pray they fall in love with themselves. Never become abusive partners, are not survivors of sexual assault. Pray their names aren't remembered as a hashtag. Don't become martyr to a movement that will write their eulogy. Pray they will always have clean drinking water. that they will never flow into the birth to prison pipeline, or that pipelines will run through their heritage. Pray they are funny and can laugh at themselves. Pray your children know the power of their voice. Pray they have a best friend, are creative, and never lose their imagination. Know that heartbreak leads to love, that the stars are a reminder that dead things still live on. Pray they have nights they'll talk about for years, that they get in trouble, that they feel the vibrations of bodies dancing in unison at a concert, that they can appreciate the way music jumpstarts hearts, that they can lean into the sweet embrace of nostalgia. Ask that they learn how to forgive themselves, how to seek help when they need it. Hope they find a partner who buys them tacos and likes their butt. Pray they find their passion. Pray they have a favorite food that they can eat often. Pray they know the rush of sneaking dessert in the middle of the night. And pray that they are safe. And if they are gay, pray that they see you as soft landing. Come out knowing that there is love on the other side. Do not seek death as sweet relief. Pray they live every moment fully. Practice saying, I love you, no matter what. Welcome them into your home again and again and again. Remind them they will always be your child. Support them when the world is cruel. Pray they bury you first. Pray your child never has to wonder if the only thing you prayed for was for them not to be gay. Thank you all so much for this time and for this gift to share deeply about the things that I'm passionate about, the things that I love. I hope you all deeply enjoyed this, and just the reminder, right? We are strong, we are resilient. Queer people have been leading the way and paving the path for so long. And what a blessing, right? What a blessing and what a gift that we are here on this world, making moves, being resilient, and destroying a system. Right? We are surpassing and messing up people's expectations for us. And that is such a gift and a model for so many more to come after us. Thank you so much for this time. Thank you, Franklin, for this invitation. And I'll put my contact information in that chat, but I'll pass it over to you, Franklin. Thank you.
See, now I'm being unmuted, so there we go. Now I can like completely gush about you. What people don't know is Ashley and I have been friends for what feels like ever now. And it's wonderful because we used to do this together, just going out and writing poetry and teaching people and all of that. But since then have gone our own directions in our own careers. So it's been a minute since Ashley and I have actually shared a stage, and it got to be virtual, and it's so tight because I just haven't heard your poems in so long. Yes, if you want to get in touch with Ashley, I dropped her, there it is, all of that information. Please flood her with requests, hire her, book her. She also does keynote speeches. I mean, you saw her pedigree, right? Like she's literally just of the highest class. So, make sure that you flood her DMs with all the message poetry requests. She also, those earrings, she makes them. Let me show you some real quick, like plugs. Ashley, give me 1 second. This is by far one of my favorite sets of earrings. They're tree sloths. Ashley made them and she sells them. So please also go check out her jewelry store, Big Bang Jewelry, because these are so fly. So with that, I'm gonna go ahead and close us out for tonight with my set. My name is Franklin Cruz. A little bit about me. I was born in Idaho. I was raised in Texas. And then I say I got polished in Denver, because we gotta get some of the edges rough or smoothed out. I'm from Idaho, but my family's Mexican. And then even deeper, our indigenous roots are through the Raramuri tribe and the Pima tribe, which is new information to me. So in terms of like really returning into who I am and owning my own history is new or newer to me on my journey. So it's been a couple of months of like having that information. That's who I am as an individual. Also a scientist, literally work at the Denver Museum of Nature and Science, teaching over there. So that's always fun. And one quick second, there it goes. Let me bring this down. I'm gonna share 3 poems with you as well. And hopefully you guys enjoy. So here's the first one. Queer is just a wheel of tall people, short people, kind of short people, really tall people. The kind of people I always just want to be around. The kind of people who figured out that trying to hold back your heart, oh, hang on. The kind of people who learn that not being yourself is like trying to hold back your heartbeat. To know that my love is as natural as the masa I use for tamales. The good morning kiss, all the laughter in the kitchen, the noise proving that my happiness isn't a choice. My queer is a cumbia step. It's salsa to doo-wop. It's horchata to Wu-Tang. Is that helix freedom, that bilingual tongue and hip, that talk that makes el sabor del sol mejor. My gay be a curanderismo. Be that magic touch and that magic kiss. Magic for my soul, spell that got me home. Reason I'm happy today. Reason my family is my home. Where my sister clearly knew before I did. She never once told me I was gay before I came out. She waited for me to tell myself. Like a great sister, she loved me. You see, here I was never beat, silenced, or tossed out. And I always ask the question, why was I so lucky? Why did my parents see all of this and still choose to pass me the tortillas at dinner when I could have easily ended up in the streets like a cat with worms? Why was I blessed with a father and a brother who did not try to shove me into a box of what a man should be? They let me spill over them edges. Why was I born here in America and not in places like Russia, where queer teens are dragged into the street, beaten, harassed, and then put on YouTube? But I know. It's because people all over the world are still inside their homes, in their kitchen cabinet, making room for the gay joke, or that gay friend, or that's gay. But in my house, my love was never different from yours. My parents only birthed respect, something I have to remind this world of. They taught me that my love was gay, and I was raised to believe it is still as holy as the prayer. So if your God is to judge me, then we'll talk. You can keep your mortal mouth shut. You can keep your salvation, your condemnation, stereotypes, your godhatesfags.com. And if you have anything else to say to me, you can keep that too. So I definitely like to start out with this poem when I'm talking about queerness, especially coming from a Latino's perspective and an indigenous person's perspective. I did not have the family that you would expect to have when you're thinking about your typical norm, immigrant, Mexican, you know, heterosexual family. And to have my coming out received in such a way, it was rough and bumpy, I'm not gonna lie. There were learning curves and there were things that were said that were painful, but overall, I was, as you saw, I was never kicked out. It was just kind of like, oh, that was not the response I wanted. And then they were like, oh, dang, sorry, I'm still learning. And to this day, we're still learning. It's an ever-growing relationship, right? And so at the end of the day, though, like, there's never an instance of outright hostility, outright rejection. It was just a lot of internal stuff that they were going through that when we had conversations, we finally got to get to this beautiful point where I have this poem where I'm just like, my God, my experience compared to a lot of other people's experience, way different, way, way different. But in that, I mean, it's only recently that I really started exploring my own femininity. Like I still lean more to the mask presentation of the spectrum. And it isn't until I started getting older and honestly just not caring what people thought about me anymore and knowing myself that I felt more comfortable exploring my own femininity. And then, you know, there's always the cultural background of like two-spirited people. I still to this day have a little bit of a hesitation identifying that way. It's in my lineage, I know, but there's like this, like, no lie, internalized colonization that happened because I grew up in America, where I'm just like, is that mine? Can I touch that? But it really dawned onto me that I still had this ability to be fluid within that. And if I needed to just like remove any femininity of myself and then present masculinely enough. And then it wasn't until I learned the phrase passing privilege that I was like, oh, that's a thing. To be able to be heterosexual enough, straight-ish enough that people wouldn't know who I was. And then I just started reflecting on that and I wrote this poem. I've been told I got the perfect balance of masculine and feminine that you can only tell if you spend the appropriate amount of time with me. I guess I'm lucky. This speech pattern and posture are my shield, a safety net where I can rest when the people around me are desperately homophobic. I guess I'm lucky that my family will never have to explain why I'm so gay. I've been told that you can't really tell that I'm gay. I don't have a stereotypical lisp walk. The clothes I choose are just regular. I'm not what people call flamboyant, but I do kiss men like their lips are made of pomegranate juice, hoping that the world actually changed, holding hands tentatively because I'm still afraid for my safety. I still only show public affection around corners out of line of sight, even though this body would pass in the eyes of others. There are days when I wish my booty would tooch a bit more, or that my voice was higher. Sometimes I wonder if men think I'm sizing them up for a fight when I'm actually checking them out. At parties, when I talk to girls, you can see the look in their boyfriends' faces, this "who the fuck is he" look. They rush over all hyper masculine and defensive, and I'm positive they think I'm hitting on their girlfriends. I tactfully drop a line about my ex-boyfriend or checking some guy out at the party. After the shock subsides and they no longer feel threatened, I realized I have a passing privilege, that I'm living underneath a cover, one I can choose to take off and expose myself as gay. The other times I'm itching to yell, "I'm gay!" So girls will stop flirting with me and guys will start flirting with me. Sometimes I wonder if I'm just too good at being me. People don't leave room in their heads to believe that I'm gay. I'm passing for straight in their eyes. Other times people obviously don't know what to do with me, so they don't even try. Others try to convince me I'm wrong, that I just need a good woman. They joke that this is funny, like my orientation is something to poke at, like I'm not struggling to have people recognize my identity every day. Most guys like me because I'm masculine. The world likes me because I'm masculine, because I mostly still fit into a box of what a man is. And even in the conversation within the LGBTQ community, feminine is still a dirty topic, a nasty glass of muddy water, something people have a hard time swallowing. I am frustrated at how people treat me because they feel safe around me. I wish people would think to look at my masculinity as being something meaningless, as something that doesn't break the conversation, that is to, or the thing that does not matter, which is to say, I'm masculine. It does not mean I am better. It does mean I am preferred by the public. It means that there are those in the world who are feminine and the world tells them they are cheap, that this is not how men should act. I am the hidden target, the one you will never see, not until I remove the cover, the one I'm privileging from right now, and have chosen to no longer pass as straight. So yeah, I think even within the LGBTQ community, like cis people specifically, we still have a lot of work about, you know, still living in binaries. Like I understand, trust me, I'm a scientist. I understand that sexual organs are a thing, but gender as a construct, that is not as finite and as concrete as we believe it is. I, as a biologist, like to think of our world, especially if you like that spectrum view, think about it like an ecosystem, right? Just like think about being able to go from the city into the mountains and then into the sand dunes and into the prairies, all within Colorado, and how many different creatures inhabit all of those places. If you can understand that concept, then understanding people's different identities shouldn't really be that hard, in my opinion, because you have analogs to look at it, right? You know that there are different kinds of deer species, but you understand that the ones in North America are gonna look entirely different from the ones in China, right? Or the ones in India, or the ones in, I'm trying to think of antelope in like Kenya or Botswana. But you understand that like, oh yeah, that still falls within that hoofed creature family type. But then when it comes to gender identities, people are like, what? You're not a guy or a girl? And it just becomes this difficult conversation. They're like, could you understand the difference between an elk and an impala? Like they literally are the same freaking creature, little different, come from a little bit of a different place. And yeah, anyway, that's just me being all kinds of sciencey and nerdy. I'm gonna finish out with one last poem. I think what helped me a lot in my identity was learning history, especially queer history. And this one is a little sad, I'm not gonna lie, sorry to end it on this note, but it's just where I wanna be. It was a story of this place called the Upstairs Lounge, where it was a queer bar in the 50s in New Orleans, and it was a sanctuary. We all in this community understand sanctuary and what it means to have a safe place to just exist. And unfortunately, a person, they don't really know who in the history books, boarded the place up and set it ablaze, and people were still inside. And it was one of the first times when I was younger that people who I didn't know, who I didn't grow up with, who didn't inherently look like me, brown and Mexican, hit me with the impact of those are my people too, right? And it was such a profound experience to be like, holy shit, I do not know anything in this context. I would have never met these people, and I am weeping over them because I was like, those are my people. So I wrote this. When I close my eyes, I see pictures of a tall tale bar in New Orleans in the 50s. And the faces of people I don't know are watching me as they walk hand in hand, hugging as they chuckle, couples all bayou blissful as they drink. They shuffle upstairs to what will become a molten, hollowed out iris of eyes, and in the memory I want to warn them. I don't know any of their names, but I do know they had names worthy of a new blue moon marriage before a soulless man boarded up the doors and set the bar on fire. And not even then the fire department or the news lifted a finger. Forget the people inside and the siblings they had, the ones they laughed with and fought with during the holidays. I bet you they miss holidays. I bet you most of them were made uncomfortable with questions like, so are you still single? Is there something wrong with you? Are you gay? This is to the smiling, safe, happy faces that melted in a New Orleans nightmare. The doors of an upstairs lounge bar engulfed in flames. People concaved and cradled themselves on the second floor. Hellfire wished upon them maelstroms in the building, forcing them to try and fail to squeeze through the window jail bars. The despair of having no reason to die and all the reasons to die are burning around you. Living as a now openly gay Latino poet, looking at photos of couples holding each other like post-Pompeii mummies, entombed in their own skin in searing waves of erupting volcanic clouds, and thinking, these two are your people burning. These two are the bones we reclaim from the catacombs of our identity. And I always think about the first time my dad talked to me about being gay. He said to always be careful of homophobes because he wants me home for the holidays. This is what I must teach my children, that being brown is not my only battle, that being gay is my biggest battle. Gay could have easily not been a battle at all. It could have been as easy as being brown. Being brown is never easy. Being gay and brown will never be easy, but in America during the 50s, newscasters covered their lenses. There was no candle vigil. No one came to the rescue of the sinners. I opened my eyes and it is hard to look that marriage is equal, but not our jobs. If you get the wrong boss or interview, you are not seen as you are seen as a problem, a difficult conversation they can't deal with. We cannot resurrect the misfortune of men, letting suffering be born again. We queer here say love through this poem, love through this moment, love like it is right now, like it is all we have. With that, I just wanted to end on that piece because I'm honestly motivated by the frustration right now. I think if you're not frustrated right now, there's a level of you that's either protecting you, trying to be ignorant, or actively opposing this, like one of those three, right? In my opinion. I don't necessarily think it's wrong to be angry. I don't think it's distressing or anything to be sad. I think it's a place to come through motivation. Like Ashley said, everything we are celebrating right now is born from this level of frustration, from that level of sadness, from that level of recognition. We understand the weight and value of these things. And if Dulce's story hits you, understand the value of that story, understand the gold in that story and how that story will one day be the story we tell to other people as they can't even imagine that that world existed, right? Like Stonewall and the riot that it was, you know, I can't imagine what that would be like right now. And so in honor of them, I feel like if you feel things, if you feel like, my God, that hit my heart, that should be your motivation to go do something, to engage in any kind of level or capacity that you can, because we got it. And in all honesty, we've always had it. You know, we are the direct example that people succeeded. And so I'm going to leave you with that. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Franklin. Oh, amazing, amazing. And I'm sure you probably couldn't see me because I was having my hands up in the air as you were speaking. So thank you so much. Thank you so much to everyone that was also our guest speakers. Ashley, thank you so much for sharing your time with us and the poetry. Amazing. Ryan, Dulce, gracias. And Tim, thank you. Just want to thank everyone. And I also want to give a big shout out to Alejandro, who will say a few words from the co-op. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you all so much for having me. My name is Alejandro with Community Language Cooperative. It is such a pleasure to be able to be here to engage in this work as an interpreter. Thank you all who participated and everyone who presented. And we hope to continue creating a space where folks are able to participate in the language of their heart as a part of racial equity. Muchas gracias a todos por tenerme aquí el día de hoy. Mi nombre es Alejandro con la Cooperativa Comunitaria de Lenguaje. Ante nada, es un placer y un honor poder estar aquí involucrado en este trabajo como intérprete. Queremos asegurarnos de que todos puedan participar en el idioma de su corazón como parte de la justicia racial. Así que muchas gracias. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening. Take care now.